Welcome back, everyone, to Xamarin Dev Days Live. We're going into our last session before our hands-on lab, where I'm going to bring Seth on board to build out some apps live. I'm super excited about it. But we want to do something special for Dev Days Live, so I asked Brandon if he would come up, and we had this big event, Connect, recently, where we made lots of announcements.
I saw you on stage. Great job.
I was on stage. I was very excited about it. Got to show some cool apps, which we're open sourcing soon. So check out blog.xamarin.com to learn about the bike sharing app, which we're super excited about. There's a lot of other things. So there was a lot in Connect. And what we wanted to do is kind of summarize everything that happened at Connect for mobile developers, right? Because we have like SQL stuff and this stuff and all this crazy stuff going on in Visual Studio. But we want to take a few minutes to show some cool features. You know, now that we've walked through Xamarin Forms, but walk through some of the cool new features, some new IDE stuff, kind of have a little discussion of it. We're taking questions. So if you go to channel9.msdn.com, the main page underneath the video right now, you'll see some Q&A. And there's one up here about kind of setup of machines that I'll get into, and we talk about the new IDEs, I guess, which would be cool.
That's always fun, right?
Yeah. So Connect, again, this is for mobile developers. We're going to kind of tackle it here. And first I want to talk about the IDE announcements. I'm a longtime Visual Studio user, longtime Xamarin Studio user, and we actually just did our first RC of Visual Studio 2017, which is super cool because we've really focused on productivity, a lot of cool new Roslyn features, C#7 coming soon, really streamlining for Azure development, which you just saw with. Yeah. So you want to, it's really built also for the enterprise development at the same time. So already, when you download VS 2017, we have Xamarin that's compatible. It is a release candidate, so kind of be aware of that. It's not final. But we also announced a brand new preview of Visual Studio for Mac, which is pretty cool. Now, you were using Xamarin Studio, Brandon.
I was.
Yeah. And what's really cool about this is kind of think of VS for Mac as the next evolution of Xamarin Studio. Right, so it has all the stuff that's built into Xamarin Studio today, but it's a whole brand new IDE, kind of built for not only mobile development but for cloud development. What I like about it is that you'll be able to do your iOS, Android, Mac development and .NET Core and ASP.NET Core right on a Mac. So same solution, same projects. So we had a question come in, and we want to tackle it while we're talking about the new IDEs. Is can you create, compile, run, and emulate an app for every platform, desktop, and mobile in Visual Studio for Mac on Mac OS? So it's a great question, right? So Visual Studio for Mac is going to do iOS, Android, Mac, .NET Core, ASP.NET Core. For Windows development, it would be on a Windows machine.
Yep.
In Visual Studio. So that's where your designers, everything like that. So you had your Xamarin Forms app. There was a UWP app in there, right?
That's right.
So that face-off app works in UWP.
It does. So in our case, for the demo, we were using Xamarin Studio. So if we brought that same solution, if we downloaded that on our PC, we can launch that in Visual Studio and run it right there on Windows.
Yeah. So and there's other ways, obviously, to get Windows on a Mac. If you're using VMware Parallels, you could boot up Windows when you needed to do that work. It's kind of up to you where you want to go. So it's like when you're developing for a platform, like Mac OS development is on Mac because it's for Mac, right? So it's there. Now, what's really cool about Visual Studio for Mac is that there's a free community edition. It's already included in your Visual Studio subscription, just like Xamarin Studio is. And it's available today as a preview. What's cool, though, is that you get these connected app templates, powerful refactoring, multi-process debugging, text-mate bundles, and you can run it side by side Xamarin Studio today. So, big fan of it.
Yeah, super cool.
Yeah. And I think, though, like the IDEs are really cool, and there's a lot that you can do with them today. But I wanted to kind of talk through some of the other development tools. Brandon and I, we really got to show like building the core apps, but there's so much more to development, right?
That's right.
So, I talked about Apple TV, I talked about Android Wear. Xamarin is compatible with all of it, but we give really good tools. So, Brandon, I'm going to let you kind of tackle some of the tools that we have.
Yeah, that sounds good. Thanks, James. So this first one is really, really cool. This is the Xamarin Inspector. So imagine if you could change your UI in real time without having to recompile the app, without having to really spend all that time building.
Yeah.
You can just do it, see it live. And the Xamarin Inspector allows you to do that. So it can show you the UI. It's a live REPL. So that stands for read, evaluate, print, loop. So you can constantly make updates and tweaks and changes. And James, I don't know if you've ever seen Iron Man, but one of my favorite movies.
Yep.
Because I love it when Tony Stark is sitting down at his computer and he's got this exploded view of the Iron Man suit. Yeah, moving stuff everywhere. That's what the inspector is. Check out how cool this looks. You can see your app in this exploded view, and it shows you all the layers inside your app. And James, the reason this is so important is because every time you have to add a new layer, that's a whole pass down the screen.
Yeah.
That's more CPU cycles, that's more information in memory. And if we can limit that, our app's going to be that much more performant. It's going to run that much faster, use less memory. And with the inspector, we can actually get a good view of how this all looks, because maybe we missed something. Maybe we put a couple extra layers in there, and we can kind of peel back the onion and see what's really going on.
Yeah, often, for instance, like you were talking about, you have margin essentially, but sometimes developers will put like a bunch of stack layouts inside of each other, which are adding layer upon layer, when really you could just put a little bit of padding or margin on a control. So the Xamarin Inspector will show you that, and they actually have a special Xamarin Forms view. So you actually see the Xamarin Forms controls.
That's right.
But I think the REPL is what really cool. And you and I had a conversation yesterday that, yeah, there is a view, but there's actually this REPL where you can talk to your app in real time.
Yeah, and so you can do crazy, crazy things with this.
Yeah.
For example, one of my friends, he has a game, and in this game, he's kind of flying a plane through and kind of shooting down enemies, and they're shooting back at him, and so he pulled it up with the Xamarin Inspector, and he was able in real time to change values in the game. So
he like exposed them publicly, essentially, right?
Yeah. So let's make the plane bigger, and then he got hit more by the enemy. So let's make the plane smaller. Really, really cool stuff.
Cool. Yeah, I like the Inspector a lot, and essentially it's kind of additional tools for really improving and iterating on your app. And I think the profiler also is that extra step.
Oh, right? Yeah. So we already talked about the inspector can show you the layers in your UI, make sure you're not doing too much more than you need to. And so you get performance benefits there. But the profiler takes it to a whole nother level. The profiler is going to show you where are your memory leaks. How much memory is your app using? When you're navigating through the app and then you what we call pop its page off a navigation stack. So you go back. You're not using that old page anymore. Garbage collector should come by, sweep it up. It should be gone.
Yep.
But is it?
Yeah.
And so what we can do is we can use the Xamarin profiler to make sure that our memory usage goes down, and that's not lodged in memory somewhere, because there's some gotchas in C#.
Yeah.
You might have an event handler still wired up to that page. Anything could happen.
Yeah. I had Nina, who is the program manager on the Xamarin show. So go back and watch that episode on the Xamarin profiler. And she was kind of talking about cycles, which is that you have C# code, but underneath iOS and Android, those are still native controls. So things could have this kind of circular weird thing. And usually in C# it's fine, but it's kind of like the upside down, right? That's how she described it, which is cool. And that was great. If you ever watch Stranger Things, I highly recommend. It's like the upside down where there's literally a mirror of your application, but the native side. Because again, Xamarin Forms are native. And also a lot of developers are like, worried about startup time. We had questions about Xamarin Forms performance, and you're loading a native traditional Xamarin app like I showed is 100% native performance, and Xamarin Forms is a framework, right, on top of it. So there are some limitations. We try to get as buttery smooth as possible, but a lot of developers worry about startup time, and sometimes it is the framework that's going to add a little bit of time, but sometimes we're doing a lot in our app initialization where we shouldn't, and we can delay that, and the profiler will tell us with these memory snapshots.
That's right. Cool. And the Xamarin Forms previewer. So James, we were playing around with XAML earlier when we were showing off Xamarin Forms. And one of the cool things with XAML is it doesn't need to be compiled to run. We do have the option in Xamarin Forms to use a XAML compiler, but we can actually preview XAML live in real time with the Xamarin Forms previewer now. So what's really neat here is, again, we avoid the whole cycle of rebuilding the app, deploying it to the phone. Okay, I didn't like how that looks. Let me go back and build it, just like we did this morning. That, 5 minutes, 10 minutes there, it really adds up over the development of an app.
If you're developing this app for 8 hours a day every time you hit debug, and our build times have been optimized, but if you have a huge, huge app, sometimes it's just nice to be like, boom, here's
that's right.
the preview.
So now we have a window that you can open up in Visual Studio or Xamarin Studio. It'll show you what your XAML looks like in real time. So we have the sample here behind us. And what's cool with this is it's not just your XAML, but if you have some data behind that, we're going to bring that in too.
Yeah,
So
custom data binding.
yeah, let's say you have images and we want to see how those images look. And now they're square images, but let's make them a circle. We change that in the XAML and we'll see that in real time. Really cool tool, really powerful.
Yeah, and what's nice here is that like your bounce button, which is a custom button that you created,
right.
will also do the custom rendering. It's pretty awesome. Now, one thing I want to talk about, I'm going to give a quick demo. We're going to do some demos here too, is Xamarin workbooks. A lot of developers come and they say, how do I get started with Xamarin? And I always say, hey, read a bunch of documentation. We have samples. Sometimes these samples are big, and that's how I got started 5 years ago. Is I went to developer.xamarin.com and did bum, and went 1, 2, 3. And I'll show you that in a second. But Xamarin workbooks work on. You'll notice this theme that everything works on Windows and on Mac. There's a profiler for Windows, a native profiler for Mac. Xamarin workbooks native for PC and for Mac. And what we've done is we've created over 100 workbooks. They're live interactive documents. And I don't think you really quite get it until I show it to you. And that's the thing. So
yeah, let's check this out.
Yeah, let me show you this here. So I'm going to go, when you go to Xamarin.com here, you can tap on this, if our internet's going to work, there we go. You can tap on the developer tab, right? So we have lots of learn about Xamarin University, Test Cloud, and when you tap on developers, this will take you to our documentation. A few things to point out. Xamarin University is live interactive training, which is awesome. You can become Xamarin certified. We have a completely free self-guided learning course right here. You can watch videos, do everything offline. It's great. You can learn about the Visual Studio for Mac preview. Here's the workbooks. I'll get to that in a second. I'm going to open in a new tab. But down here, again, this is my getting started. Getting started with Xamarin. You're having issues with setup, doing this stuff, iOS, Android, and Xamarin Forms. I walked through the same thing 5 years ago, and I recommend it to this day. And it doesn't matter, no matter what you're working on, right? If you're working on Windows 10, which I am here, someone asked, can I do the hands-on lab? Of course you can. If you're on Mac, you're on Windows, whatever you're on, you're totally good. So Xamarin Workbooks, I tapped on this thing here. Now, this will bring you to our Xamarin Workbooks guide, essentially. How to download it, it's a separate install for Mac or Windows. So when you tap on that, it'll say, hey, you need to have, you install it on Mac or Windows. Here's what it works with and the different emulators that you have in here, and there's logs, and you can give us feedback. What's cool is that these are all the workbooks. So here, if I want to get started with workbooks, how do they work? How do I visualize WPF or iOS? How do I use user interface controls on Android, for instance? How do I use Azure, right? How do I get started with Azure or the Emotion service, cognitive services? Or C#6, graphics, UrhoSharp, TinyRender, SkiaSharp. Basically, you can learn anything interactively. So for instance, I can download where's a cool one that we did, Planet Earth. I'll download that and open it later. Cool. I'll download it here. I've downloaded a few of them. So I've downloaded the Hello Android one. Let's learn about Android development. So I actually have it running here on the desktop. So all I did was I went over to my desktop and I ran Android, the Xamarin Workbooks. And essentially what it did is it launched the Xamarin Workbooks app on my desktop. So here it is. And essentially, it's like a README file that I can execute code in. So check this out. So here, for instance, it's like getting started. And it says, hey, you want to get started. You want to go ahead and run these few commands. So you can hit start or you can hit Control-Enter. And what this will do is it'll run and it'll execute the code. And it says, hey, you need to get the root activity. And this is kind of a way of exposing some variables. And it says, hey, here's this. We're good to go. I can define the user interface. So I start learning, what's a view group? What's an activity? Okay, well, I have this linear layout that's vertical, and it's going to execute. And it says, hey, this is the last thing that you ran. Let's add a button, though. So I'm going to create a new button, pass it the activity, and I'm going to set the text here. So I'm learning about properties. I'm going to add it to my view. So boom, I have a button. I executed code from a README file, and it started a Xamarin Android app to learn from this.
Incredible.
It's crazy. So then here I can say, I want to add a text view here, which is cool. So there's this space to rent. I can change it, and it updates in real time. I can say, I can come in and actually modify it. This is cool. It's a document, right? So hello, Xamarin Dev Days Live. Execute, execute. Come over, Control-Enter. It updates in real time right there. So now I start learning about properties. So I want to maybe center it horizontally. That's pretty cool. I can come in and set padding options. There you go.
I can set the room. I like it.
I can set the color. Yellow. I don't like yellow, so I love yellow. It's actually my favorite color. But we found something in here all the colors. Now notice I'm getting rich IntelliSense. It's powered by Azure, or from Roslyn, I mean. So Roslyn's in here. My favorite was burly wood, nice brown color, right? You can say a blue, right? So you're getting these rich IntelliSense going on. That's really hard to see. Let's set it back to yellow. There we go. These are Android controls. Then you can learn about how do you respond, right? So I go through here and I say, how do I add a button click? All right, so now I added a button click. So if I click it, it says the button was clicked. But again, I can come modify this code, right? So I can come in here and I can say, hey, what if I wanted to do a click handler that's in here? So let me go back down here and I'll say var count equals 0. And then I'll come up here, scroll down a little bit, and I'll say count plus plus. Notice that I'll do some C# string interpolation, and I'll just go ahead and say count, and it knows how to do that. And then I'll control enter, and now whenever I click, it adds the count on it.
That's cool.
Really cool. I can learn about displaying toast. I can learn about how to do all these different properties right inside of it, which is really cool. So I can go ahead and now open, and I'm done with this, and I have some further reading, some exercises. What's nice is that you don't have to go line by line either. So if I execute this Planet Earth one, which is a WPF application, it's going to relaunch a Xamarin workbook, and it's going to prepare it. Notice it's preparing the workbook on the bottom, and it has a bunch of like this thing called Urho Sharp, which is a really cool 3D rendering framework, which is really awesome. So it's going to prepare this workspace. And each one will take a little bit different. Essentially, in that instance, it'll try to connect to an Android emulator, or this instance, it's going to spin up a WPF application, which is right here. It's blank. So it's created that for us. Now I can start just executing this line by line if I want to, and execute and bring in Urho Sharp and bring in all these using statements and do a bunch of other stuff. Now actually what's cool is it's actually downloading some packages here for me. So I'm going to go ahead and add some more things, add a bunch of nodes, do a bunch of stuff. I'm just going to go to the bottom and just run it because I think that's cool. I'm just going to go ahead and enter. And essentially now it's going to run through all of these lines of code all the way to the bottom. And right here, it actually just gave me this 3D map with a click handler where I can learn and I can try to click on these little things here. If I'm not doing a very good job. There we go. I should use the touch screen because I have a touch screen. That's better. I can learn in how I have all these things. I can modify this code. I can do all the different rotations and learn about how to use this 3D game engine, which is super awesome. And again, same thing here. If I click on the C#6 version, this is going to teach me all about C#6. When C#7 comes out, we'll do a C#7 one. This is so cool. So if you're like, hey man, how does null condition operate? How does the Elvis operator work, right? I can come learn about how it was done in C#5, where I had to go in and check against null, where in this one I can use the question mark dot, right?
So
Which is
nice.
so cool.
Love it.
So you can come learn this, and this is just running in a console. So if I come in and I just execute the code, it'll go through and it'll actually execute the code up to that point, and I can actually see the results in line. So 3, 0 that are coming back right here. I can add click handlers. I can do all this stuff right inside of workbooks. It's completely free, no matter what you're doing. You just download it and you're good to go. Workbooks is super cool for learning. I love it. We have one more thing, and you've been using quite a bit.
I love it.
I got to be on stage and kind of announce it, which is really cool with Nat, which I ran in this morning too, actually, which is funny. Which is that when we're mobile developers, and this is kind of me on a day-to-day basis. I have my IDE, either Xamarin Studio or Visual Studio, and I have my device that's plugged in, or I have a simulator. But then I start doing more, right? I saw UI tests in your project.
Yep, got to test it.
You have maybe crash reporting, maybe Hockey app, or using some other services that are out there. And then you want to do continuous integration.
That's right.
You want to do a bunch of other stuff. So now we start adding all this stuff, right? You want to back-end services.
Oh yeah.
Like Azure, for instance, that are in there, and identity and all this stuff. And things get complicated really fast, unfortunately. I've published about 70 apps now on the different app stores, and the worst is like if I want Brandon here to actually test my application, is I have to like build it, compile it, do this stuff, and then hand it to you and like email it to you, right?
Make sure it's signed properly. Make sure I can install it.
Yeah.
Crazy.
And the problem here is that all these services are available, but I got to go find them all. So what we did is we said, what if we put a bunch of those together,
Boom.
right, into one service and rebuilt really everything for mobile first when it comes to continuous everything and the back-end services I need for my app. And we call it Visual Studio Mobile Center, or what you'll hear me often say is just Mobile Center. It's actually you'll see the URL. It's mobile.azure.com. But it's everything that you want, and we're adding more services all the time.
Yeah, that's right. So right now, this is hot off the presses. It's still
Preview, right?
Still preview.
Yeah.
We actually just opened it up to the public. When James announced this at Connect, this was actually a private preview. You had to request an invitation. We just opened that up. So if you just go here to mobile.azure.com, you can create an account, log in, get started. Try it out. Let us know. Give us that feedback. That's what we'd love to hear. And we're going to use your feedback to make it even better.
Yeah. And you've been automating an app with it and kind of want to show it off, right?
Yeah, let's check it out.
Let's head over. You can use my machine.
Sure, no problem.
I'll let you log into your account. So.
Yeah, we're in Chrome here.
Yep.
There we go. All right, so we have the Mobile Center tab open. And so right away you can see I've already got a bunch of apps in here. Like James said, I've been playing around with this a lot. And what I want to show you first is just how easy it is to get started with. The big problem with CIs is just getting your app to build that first time.
Yep.
And I've used tools before, and it's taken me weeks, a whole week of just working on getting my app to build in CI. But check out how easy this is in Mobile Center. So I'm going to put the Face-Off app in here. And the first thing you'll notice is this is Mobile Center. This isn't just for Xamarin apps.
Yeah, it's not Xamarin Center,
yeah.
right? Yeah.
So if you have an iOS app built in Objective-C or Swift, you can use Mobile Center. If you're a React Native developer, you can use Mobile Center. If you have your Android app developed in Java, you can use Mobile Center.
Yeah, we realize that, listen, you may have not switched everything over to Xamarin, and now you are after coming to Dev Days Live.
That's right.
Soon. But Mobile Center is for everyone, just like our tooling and everything. We're very, every developer, every app out there. But we're obviously going to show Xamarin because everyone should be developing with Xamarin.
Yeah, we'll keep running with the face-off. So let's add that in here. We'll do Xamarin iOS. I'll say add new app. And the first page we're brought to is actually really nice. I'm so glad we did this because it actually gives you the code to add to your solution. So here you can see that. Thanks, James.
Make it a little bit bigger.
Yeah. So it tells you right here, here's the NuGet packages to add, and then add these lines of code, and then you're done. You're off and running. So there's no guessing. You don't have to dig through any documentation. It even puts my API key here, so that's fun, broadcasting live on the internet. But yeah, if we jump over to build, check out how easy this is.
So essentially, there's kind of two parts, right? There's kind of like the continuous deployment and continuous integration part of it.
That's right.
And then there's also this backend, which is that getting started, which is that if you want crash reporting and analytics, you download an SDK. But for just testing and automating your app and deploying it, you don't need to install anything. It's just whatever you need. But this is cool. But boom, Face-Off.
That's right. So yeah, let's grab. So what I've already done, I've connected Mobile Center to my GitHub repo. And like we saw earlier, the Face-Off app lives in GitHub. Mm-hmm. And so all I had to do was click on it, and it found these branches already for me. So here's the branch where we were working on the welcome page, and obviously my master branch. So let's go into the master branch, set it up, and it has a couple questions. It's already scanned my repo for me, which is really cool. It found my solution file. So I'm just going to confirm that. That's good. I'm cool with debug for my configuration and Xcode using Xcode 8.1. And what we can do is we can tweak this a little bit. You can build for the simulator, or you can build for actual devices.
Okay, yeah.
And so we won't do this today, but I could upload my provisioning profile, my certificate signing identity from my Apple developer account, and I can actually sign this. And after we've signed it, boom, I can distribute that to my beta testers. So just like James was saying, it's such a hassle to get your app into your beta testers' hands. And now Mobile Center makes it super easy. So let's just go ahead and toggle that off just to get this started. And as soon as I finish setup, it's off and running. So Mobile Center has continuous integration. And so now, anytime I commit to my master branch that I just configured, Mobile Center is going to automatically build my app for me, make sure that there's no bugs, make sure everything builds cleanly. Because if we're on a big team with a bunch of developers and we're all contributing pull requests into the master branch, we want to make sure it works, right?
Yeah.
So let's make sure that the feature that James just wrote and I just wrote don't conflict. So what it's going to do now, it's actually building my app. I can click in here. We won't spend time looking at all the logs, although we could.
Yeah. So it's actually provisioned like a whole machine. This is built on top of VSTS, Visual Studio Team Services. So it's actually going off and it's provisioned a Mac somewhere in some magical cloud thingy that you don't have to worry about, and it's building your iOS or Android application.
Yeah, that's right.
It's going to take a few minutes, I assume.
So let's jump over, James, to a sample app that I have in here. Here we go. So like we were saying, Mobile Center, this is your one-stop shop. Before, you could have CI, but you'd have to go to the CI portal to see your continuous integration results. And you could have UI tests run in the cloud and say Xamarin Test Cloud.
Yeah.
But you'd have to go to Xamarin Test Cloud to see those test results.
Yep.
And same thing with distributing your app. You could do that with Hockey app, and then you could have analytics and crash reporting, and they're all in different places. So now in Mobile Center, they're all in one spot. So let's check out this in this sample app. So we already looked at build. So right away we can see the build status for this app. Looks like I've got a failing branch, maybe something to check on after Dev Days Live finishes up today. So let's go into the test results. So always test your apps, right? And so I like to have UI tests, and I uploaded these UI tests to Mobile Center. And just like you'd expect, I can come here and see my app running on all these real devices. These aren't simulators. These are real
Physical
Android
devices,
tablets, real Android phones. And so I can see just exactly how it looks. If I zoom in, we can even see the screenshots from the app as it was running on this device, as I type in my username and my password, and then I can tap the login button and make sure that I get, because I wanted to create a new user with an incorrect password for that one.
Yeah, so basically ensuring that your app is doing what you're telling it to do.
Yeah, and these are obviously great to make sure it passed, but even more helpful if it doesn't, because then we catch our bugs before we distribute it out to our beta testers.
Absolutely.
And that's actually the next tab here for distribute. I've got a team full of collaborators that's helped me with this app. I can have multiple teams, so maybe I want to have a alpha testing team with, maybe it's just me and James, because we're working on the app together, we'll test it out. We'll have a beta testing team where we can send it out to maybe people outside of the organization that can try it, give us the feedback, and we can do that automatically with Mobile Center.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, and
then you get some more services, right? So this is kind of, Adrian just showed kind of the back end with Azure Mobile Apps, but Mobile Center brings that into it essentially for this table here. So you can actually do everything that he showed you inside here, right?
Yeah, that's right. Why go to Azure to create a table or to edit the data? Edit the data. I can see that all right here. So this is a table. This is the back end that this app uses.
Oh, cool.
And so I can see all the data that's in that table.
Modify the schema.
If I was feeling crazy.
Yeah,
we won't do that today, but yeah, you can interact with this just like you would in the Azure portal. And you can even include identity.
Yeah, so you don't have to
login page.
Yeah, so essentially anything that you could do in the portal, like Adrian was showing and setting up, it's right here. So you don't have to jump around even so. We've even simplified that.
That's right.
Cool. I think the last two are my favorite though, Crash and Analytics, because once I've installed that SDK, there's a cross-platform API to actually add Crash and Analytics to maps, see what my users are doing so I can improve my app. So.
And this is insanely helpful because who knows what actually happens to your app when it's in the wild. So James and I have both pushed apps to app stores, and we think it works. We think we found all the bugs.
Yeah.
But who knows, right?
Who knows?
Maybe it's crashing on a certain device that we just didn't check. So this crash reporting will give us that data back. So if I'm running the app on my device as a user and it crashes, then the app will report back this stack trace. And so me as the developer, I can jump in here and say, okay, yeah, it looks like it crashed. In this case, it looks like there's a button called a crash button. Every time you click it, it crashes.
Go figure. Good way to test it.
And yeah, like here's the code. I can jump straight into that class and make sure I fix that bug.
I like that.
Yeah, and then analytics, I'm actually going to jump over to another app that has a little bit more data. Show off the analytics there.
Oh yeah, sure.
Check this out.
Yeah.
Yeah, so my app, it's only been out for about a week or so, but you can see after your app's been in the wild for months, weeks, days, you can start to see the trend analysis. You can see who's using my app, how are they using the app. And so you can even dig a little deeper, and actually let's jump back to the sample we were looking at earlier and jump into
events. Yeah. So event tracking, essentially how often things are appearing.
Huge.
Yeah.
So this helps me as a developer understand what the users are doing. Are they tapping that button? Are they visiting this page? Yep. We might have just spent a week adding a new feature to the app, are they actually using it?
Yeah.
Maybe we need to make that feature bigger, maybe change a color, maybe have a little splash welcome page that says, hey, check out this new feature. It's great. So when I want to make that next update to my app, I jump straight to the events and see what to do next.
Boom. So there it is, kind of everything you need, continuous everything for your applications. I love it. Mobile.azure.com, check it out. Before we jump to a quick break, and I get Seth in here, had a few questions about the labs, hands-on lab. We're going to put up the GitHub page one more time at the beginning of the hands-on lab. And a few questions about what do I need to get set up. We sent out lots of email instructions. You can do it on Mac or PC. It's OK. If you're on a Mac, we're going to focus on iOS and Android development. If you're on a PC like Seth is, we're going to focus on Windows 10 and Android development. So don't worry about not having a Mac and a PC set up. That's what we're going to focus on today. So no matter what you're doing, if you're doing iOS and you're trying to do iOS from here and you have it, both of them, awesome. Try them all. Seth's going to be focused on Android and Windows 10, and we're going to walk through that setup right after the break. Thank you so much.
Right.
Yeah,
thanks,
hope
James.
everyone's loving it.